A champagne flute shattered at her feet as a macaron smeared her dress, but Ariel Monroe didn't flinch. She stood tall, surrounded by laughter, insults, and cameras. Just as security reached for her arm, she looked the crowd dead in the eye and said, "Ask Damien." And then the chapel doors flew open, and the billionaire groom walked straight toward the woman they had just tried to throw out. On a crisp April morning, with the scent of wet pavement and roasted espresso still hanging in the air, Ariel Monroe stepped onto Madison Avenue with quiet confidence. The sun hadn't yet broken fully through the skyline, and the city hummed with early promise. She walked past boutiques trimmed in gold and glass, their window displays whispering opulence. Towering above them all stood Atelier Montreux, the crown jewel of bridal couture, a place whispered about in fashion circles and written about in glossy spreads where the words bespoke in six figures were commonplace. Ariel pushed open the boutique's glass door, a soft chime echoing like a bell in a cathedral. Inside, light filtered through crystal chandeliers, scattering rainbows over the marble floor. Gowns lined the walls like relics, each encased in glass or draped delicately on mannequins with cinched waists and sweeping trains. The air smelled of white peonies, lavender, and ambition. She wore oatmeal linen culottes and a loose cotton blouse, tucked just slightly at the waist. Her hair, a rich cascade of chestnut, was pinned back in a simple knot, and her face held no makeup, only a dusting of rose lip balm and the soft glow of clarity. A plain canvas tote hung from her shoulder. She looked out of place. She knew that. But she also knew she belonged. Behind the ivory counter stood four women, poised like sentries. Each wore a tailored black dress and bore the carefully calculated expression of curated indifference. At the center was Genevieve Alcott, the salon's lead director, known in the industry for her discerning eye and unapologetically sharp tongue. Her arms crossed as she eyed Ariel from head to toe. "Can we help you?" Genevieve asked, her tone thick with suspicion. "I'm here for my 11 o'clock fitting," Ariel replied calmly, her voice smooth like honey poured over warm tea. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. Ariel Monroe. Custom fitting. Confirmed 6 months ago. Genevieve's gaze slid to the phone, her perfectly arched brow rising as if the name insulted her. "Our gowns start at $85,000, she said, her voice syrupy, but the edge unmistakable. "And we don't do walk-ins." "I'm not walking in," Ariel said. "I'm scheduled." Mila, the youngest of the staff, snorted. She leaned against a rack of veils, whispering, probably stole someone's invite. "She's dressed like she wandered in from a yoga studio." Genevieve's lips curled. "Sweetheart, this is a private atelier," she said, drawing out each word like silk. "We tailor for clients with appointments and expectations." Ariel didn't flinch. "I am a client. The gown is custom, designed by Emile 3 months ago. I paid the full deposit in November." Mila chuckled and pulled out her phone. "This is too good," she muttered. A second later, she was live streaming, her camera angled just right to catch Ariel's profile and her unassuming outfit. Stranger shows up to luxury fitting dressed like a barista. Real client or fashion fantasy? The comment section exploded. "Is this a prank? She looks like a thrift store intern. This can't be real." Emojis danced across the screen. Still, Ariel remained composed, her fingers loosely holding the strap of her tote. She didn't step forward. She didn't argue. Genevieve let out a laugh that sliced the silence. "You've had your fun," she said to Mila, "but now let's help her back to where she came from." Then the boutique's door opened again, and in walked Vivian Keene, New York aristocracy, old money elegance, and a perennial presence on every gala guest list. Her heels clacked on the marble like a judge's gavel. Her mink coat slid off her shoulders like a command. She paused mid-step when she saw Ariel. "Who let this riffraff in?" she asked, her voice flat with offense. Her gaze was a scalpel, and Ariel stood under its blade. "She says she has an appointment," Mila offered helpfully, panning her phone to include Vivian in the frame. "But we're still waiting for the confirmation from reality." Vivian walked straight up to Ariel and flicked her blouse with a manicured nail, as if testing the fibers for authenticity. "This is an insult to couture," she said. "To stand where legacy clients have stood, dressed like you just rolled out of a laundry bin?" Laughter burst from the staff. Zara, another boutique employee, clapped like she'd witnessed stand-up comedy. Mila's live stream viewers crossed 10,000. The beige intruder was born. Ariel remained still. She didn't fold. Her eyes, hazel, clear, unshaken, remained on Genevieve. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice soft but firm. "And one day, it'll cost you more than this dress." That only earned another scoff. "Security," Genevieve called. They didn't touch her. But they moved as a unit, their bodies angling, closing her in like walls. As they gestured toward the door, Ariel turned on her heel, her linen pants whispering against her ankles, her tote slung tight against her side. The velvet curtain swayed as she passed through it. Outside, the streets of Manhattan continued unaware. Cars honked. Coffee steamed. Somewhere, a saxophonist played a mournful tune on the corner of 58th. But inside every boutique, phone, and digital feed, the moment became legend. The live stream hit 100,000 views by noon. By evening, it had gone viral. Headlines flooded the internet. "Woman mistakes luxury bridal salon for Macy's fitting room, fashion faux pas of the year, the beige intruder." Twitter erupted with memes. One showed Ariel's outfit photoshopped into a Paris runway. Another overlaid her photo with the words, "When you RSVP'd but forget the dress code." No one knew her name. But everyone thought they knew her shame. In a high-rise across town, Ariel sat alone in a minimalist apartment filled with light and white oak floors. She sipped green tea and read each headline with quiet eyes. Her phone buzzed with alerts, friends asking if that was really her, assistants panicking about the press. She answered no one. She only watched. The world thought she had walked into the lion's den unarmed. But they hadn't seen what she'd built behind the scenes. They hadn't seen her name etched into the silk linings of minimalist dresses worn by celebrities and senators alike. They hadn't seen the empire she'd built, quietly, brilliantly, and alone. And they definitely hadn't seen what was coming next. The internet never sleeps. By the time Manhattan went dark, Ariel Monroe's name was still unknown to the world, but her image, standing inside Atelier Montreux in beige linen and grace, was plastered across every social media feed. She had become a meme, a joke, the punchline of fashion's cruelest inside joke. And yet, she said nothing. Not a tweet. Not a video. Not even a subtle repost. While the world mocked her silence, she was already writing the next chapter. 1 week later, the sun rose over the Loire Valley, casting golden light across the sprawling Château de Fleurs. The estate shimmered like a dream, white peacocks gliding through the garden paths, a string quartet warming up near the marble fountains, and staff bustling about with trays of rose and lavender macarons. It was being called the wedding of the century, the secret ceremony of Damien Crestfield, media magnate and billionaire heir, known for building a digital empire with a net worth of $38 billion and a gaze sharp enough to make headlines buckle. No one knew who the bride was. Not the stylists flown in from Milan. Not the editors from Vogue and Vanity Fair. Not even the influencers who'd practically sold their souls for an invite. They arrived in droves, each dressed to be seen. Among them, Genevieve Alcott, clad in a sapphire gown and arrogance, Mila, now boasting 500,000 new followers from her viral beige intruder video, Vivian Keane, dripping in diamonds, her laugh sharper than ever, and Zara DeWitt, the fashion vlogger whose latest post read, "If you're not here, you're irrelevant." They sipped champagne, clinked crystal, and speculated endlessly. "She's probably royalty," Mila whispered, filming a slow pan of the chateau for her story. "Or some model in hiding," Genevieve added, adjusting her neckline. "Whoever she is, she won't be wearing beige," Zara smirked, her lavender gown cascading like a waterfall. And then she appeared. Quietly. Almost unnoticed at first. Ariel Monroe. stepped through the garden gates, dressed once more in a simple beige linen dress. Her hair flowed in loose waves. Her flats were unbranded, slightly scuffed. No makeup, no jewelry, no entourage. Just herself. Mila gasped audibly, phone already in hand. No way. Genevieve froze, her wine glass paused midair. Vivian's lip curled. Again? Zara narrowed her eyes, raising her camera like a weapon. She has the audacity to show her face? Here? The crowd buzzed. Is she crashing? This is embarrassing. Someone stop her before she ruins the photos. A macaron flew, hitting Ariel's shoulder and leaving a pink streak on the fabric. Laughter followed. Someone tossed champagne, the spray catching the light like gold. Ariel didn't flinch. She walked with the same calm as before, her hands lightly clasped. Mila was already live streaming, her caption loud, "Beige girl crashes a billionaire wedding, again." The viewer count surged, 10,000. 25,000, 50,000. A chorus of voices echoed through the courtyard, mocking, cruel, relentless. Security. Genevieve barked. 2 guards moved in. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to." Ariel held her ground. Her voice was quiet, but unyielding. "Check the guest list." Or ask Damien. The name stung like cold water. A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Did she just, Damien? She's bluffing. The guards hesitated. A beat. Then the massive chapel doors creaked open. And everything changed. Damien Crestfield stood at the threshold. Tall, commanding, his custom-tailored tuxedo cutting a perfect silhouette against the light. He looked down the marble steps, eyes locked on one person. Ariel. He descended slowly, each step echoing like a verdict. The crowd parted. Phones trembled. Champagne glasses dipped. He reached her, took her hand, and kissed it gently. "You're late," he said, smiling. "Traffic," Ariel replied. The crowd was frozen. Zara's phone slid from her hand, clattering to the stone. Mila stopped recording. Genevieve went pale. Vivian's mouth hung open. Damien turned to the crowd, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Allow me to introduce my bride," he said. "Ariel Monroe." Silence. Then a gasp. Then a wave of disbelief. Ariel stepped forward. But this time, she was not in linen. A team of attendants appeared seemingly from nowhere, and within minutes, the transformation began. Her dress, unveiled at last, was the very gown she had been denied. The Atelier Montreux creation. Custom designed. Ivory silk. Diamond embroidery. The light caught the gemstones and scattered them like stars. She glided past the crowd, her train sweeping over the cobblestones like a silken sword. Zara looked ready to faint. Vivian whispered a prayer that someone would wake her from the nightmare. Genevieve staggered back as if the very air had turned on her. Damien raised his hand, signaling to a woman in a dove-gray suit, Elise Navarro, Ariel's chief of staff. Elise stepped forward, holding a sleek tablet glowing with names. Effective as of this morning, Damien announced, Atelier Montreux is now owned by Solis. Gasps. And the founder, the designer behind your favorite red carpet dresses, your editorial covers, your social feeds, is standing right here. He nodded to Ariel. She built Solis. From nothing. From a studio in Brooklyn. No investors. No family connections. No viral stunts. Just raw talent and relentless vision. Elise began reading names. Genevieve Alcott. Mila Thomas. Vivian Keene. Zara DeWitt. One by one, the names of those who ridiculed Ariel were called. One by one, they were escorted out. Some protested. Some cried. Some begged. But it didn't matter. They had written their legacy with mockery. Now they were living the consequences. Ariel didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her silence thundered louder than any clapback. She turned to the stunned guests, many of whom had once retweeted her humiliation, and said, "You judged me by my clothes, not by my character. And today, that choice writes your story, not mine." Damien offered his arm. She took it. Together, they walked up the marble steps into the chapel as the organ swelled and petals rained from the ceiling. The world, still watching through millions of live streams, saw not a joke, not an imposter, but a queen crowned not with jewels, but with grace. And the internet began to rewrite the meme. The beige intruder had become fashion's quiet revolutionary. And her story was only just beginning. The last notes of the organ still hung in the air when Ariel Monroe and Damien Crestfield turned from the altar, hands intertwined, faces serene beneath the stained glass light of the Chateau de Fleurs chapel. Just moments earlier, the world had watched in stunned silence as Damien introduced Ariel, not just as his bride, but as the visionary behind Solis, the $12 billion minimalist fashion empire. In the courtyard, the influencers who had mocked her were gone, their exits hastened by quiet security and louder public disgrace. And yet, even with vindication written into every diamond on her gown, Ariel's gaze held no triumph, only clarity. As the newlyweds stepped into the reception hall beneath vaulted ceilings painted with cherubs and constellations, guests stood frozen like statues, glasses suspended in midair, the weight of their misjudgment anchoring their feet to the marble floor. Ariel's gown glided with each step, whispering a different kind of power, not loud, not boastful, but undeniable. Behind her, Elise Navarro tapped across the floor, tablet in hand, nodding quietly to her staff, the Solis team already setting the next phase into motion. At the far end of the room, the floral arch still shimmered, its blooms swaying gently as if bowing in recognition of a new order. Then Ariel stepped forward and turned to face the room. The chatter ceased. Forks stopped mid-bite. Phones, once raised to ridicule her, now trembled in awe. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice, measured and warm, traveled through the room like a ripple across still water. "Many of you first saw me not as a guest, not as a client, not even as a human being," she began, her eyes scanning the crowd without accusation. "You saw beige. You saw simplicity. And in that, you saw worthlessness." A collective breath caught. Some lowered their eyes. Others clutched champagne flutes with white-knuckled grip. What happened at Atelier Montreux wasn't new. It's a reflection of something old. Something broken. This industry, one I love, has a habit of confusing extravagance for excellence. Status for character. Trend for value. Elise nodded slightly, her tablet now connected to a projector behind Ariel. On the screen, the Solis logo appeared, clean, minimalist, glowing white on black. Solis was built from that silence, Ariel continued. In a Brooklyn studio with nothing but a borrowed sewing machine, a laptop, and an idea. I never showed my face because I wanted the designs to speak. And they did. You wore them. Praised them. Sold them. Without ever asking who I was. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Someone in the back whispered, "I own 3 of her pieces." Another added, "She dressed the first lady last year." Ariel didn't flinch. "This isn't about revenge," she said. "It never was. Revenge screams. Ego demands. But dignity stands still." The screen behind her shifted to photos, runway shows, red carpet moments, editorial spreads, all showcasing Solis designs, all worn by women across the spectrum, rich, poor, famous, unknown. "Atelier Montreux taught me something in its cruelty," she said. "It taught me what must change." Her tone sharpened, not with anger, but with resolve. Effective immediately, Atelier Montreux is no longer a gatekeeper for the few. Under Solis, it becomes a bridge for the many. A ripple of gasps. "Our gowns will still be art," she clarified. "But our doors will be open. Our models won't be a single body type. Our clients won't be filtered by their bank accounts or their background. Fashion is expression, not exclusion. Applause began slowly, from the corners of the room, where seamstresses and stylists and junior editors stood, then grew louder, richer, until it filled the hall like music. Ariel turned to a woman standing quietly to the side, dressed in modest navy silk. "Lena," she said with a smile, "I want to thank you." The room followed her gaze to Lena, the only Atelier Montreux staff member who hadn't joined in the public humiliation. "You didn't speak loudly, but you also didn't join the cruelty. That matters." Lena's eyes welled. She nodded, too stunned to speak. "I'd like to offer you the role of creative director at Solis Bridal," Ariel said simply. "Because leadership begins with character, not title." The room erupted again. Not with shock this time, but with recognition. Respect. Hope. As applause echoed off the marble and crystal, Damien stepped beside her, pride evident in the way his arm wrapped around her waist. He leaned in, whispering something only she could hear. Ariel smiled and nodded. Then, Elise Navarro stepped forward once more. "There's one final piece of news," she said. "As of this hour, all former shares of Atelier Montreux have been consolidated under Solis Holdings. To every designer, seamstress, intern, and model once dismissed or overlooked, we invite you to join us. Applications open tonight." The projector displayed a final message, "Solis Bridal, for every woman." Guests flooded the terrace under the twilight sky, the garden lit with floating lanterns and soft music. Couples danced. Conversations buzzed not with gossip, but admiration. The internet, meanwhile, was ablaze. The live stream had reached over 2 million viewers. Comment sections overflowed with praise. She didn't just win. She changed the rules. Ariel Monroe is a legend in linen. The revolution wore beige. At the edge of the terrace, away from the crowd, Ariel and Damien stood beneath a canopy of flowering wisteria. The breeze lifted her veil gently as Damien brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You didn't just take back your moment," he said, his voice low. "You gave it to every woman who's ever been told she doesn't belong." Ariel turned to him, eyes shimmering, not from tears, but from light. "That's the only kind of power worth having," she replied. "The kind you use to lift others." From a distance, the music shifted. The first notes of their wedding song played, soft jazz, full of memory. Damien extended his hand. Ariel placed hers in it. And under the stars, surrounded by a world forever changed, they danced. No throne. No spotlight. Just grace. And the quiet certainty that this story, written in silk and courage, would echo far beyond the walls of Chateau de Fleurs. Sometimes, the loudest power in the room is the one that never has to raise its voice. Ariel Monroe's story is not just about a woman being judged for her clothes, it's about what we value, what we choose to see, and how easily society discards those who don't look the part. In a world obsessed with labels and appearances, it becomes dangerously easy to confuse simplicity with insignificance. Ariel was calm when they mocked her. She was graceful when they filmed her pain. And she was silent, not because she was weak, but because she didn't need noise to prove her worth. She let her work, her vision, and her character speak for her. That is the heart of this story. The lesson? Never let someone else's shallow view define your depth. You don't owe the world a performance to be taken seriously. You don't need to shout your value if your actions already echo it. Real class is not how you dress when people are watching, it's how you carry yourself when they doubt you. We live in a culture that often idolizes status, but forgets substance. That lifts up influencers and mocks the invisible architects behind every success. But as Ariel showed the world, true legacy is built quietly, consistently, and often in the shadows. To those of you listening or watching this story today, especially those who've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel less than because of what you wore, where you came from, or how you carried yourself, this story is for you. Stand tall in your simplicity. Stay kind in the face of cruelty. And never forget, elegance isn't in the price tag, it's in the presence. From all of us at US Edifying Stories, thank you for watching. We are honored to share stories like Ariel's, tales that reflect dignity, justice, and the quiet triumphs that often go unseen. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own worth, we invite you to like, comment, and share so others can feel that same reminder. Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter.